The heat of the battle is what makes racing exciting. Just ahead is the potential for another position, perhaps a podium. Behind is someone who wants to be where you are. To them, you're in the way, and they'll pull out all the stops to overtake you, just as you would the car in front. Battles keep you on your toes, they keep you alert, and they keep you humble. They're all fun and games until...
Hello and welcome to Donington Park. A beautiful, sunny, grey, cloudy Donington Park. But it's dry, so, you know, hooray! This weekend I am primarily hoping to have a jolly good time because I really like Donington Park, amazingly, a year ago, almost to the day, I was here having my test drive in the 296 Challenge car, which was a kind of come and have a go, see how you get on. If you like it, then maybe you can come and enter next year. I've done a lot of laps here. I love driving here on track days. We had a very nice test day here a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, all of which has put me in a very good mood about this weekend. Donington Park's a really interesting circuit. Firstly, because it's quite wide in places, but it's also quite technical. So it's a kind of a circuit of two halves. You've got a very straight focused half with a chicane halfway through, which gives you an opportunity to relax a little bit and gather your thoughts. And then the other side of the circuit is massively complex. So we've got a very steep downhill section called the Craner Curves, which they require a lot of bravery and you're reliant on downforce. You've got a corner called the Old Hairpin, which is in absolutely no way, shape or form a hairpin, but then sends you along the kind of bottom straight before you get a technical wiggly bit and you go back up the hill before the straights. So you've got like straight, chicane, straight, nice, easy, then twisty, twisty, then back up again. So for that reason, unlike Brands Hatch, you do have a moment to go, oof, to check the mirrors, to see where everybody is, to have a chat with Miles back in the pit lane. So yeah, a lot easier to drive in that aspect, but the bits that are twisty and technical get very busy here. So, and what I don't want to do again is be stuck behind back markers from a completely different class, because whilst it's fun to have a good battle, it's not ideal for me getting championship points. What I want to be doing is battling with people that are in my class so I can get points from my championship and hopefully work our way back up. We had 2 4th place finishes at Alton, a couple of 5th places at Brands. So if I can get back up to 4th, I'll be really happy.
Coming to Donington, it's a circuit that John knows more than others. He's done plenty of track days here, so a little bit like Brands, where he's got this sort of expectation that he's going to do all right. So that's always the first thing to contend with. But it's nice to have a bit of quiet confidence, so I'm okay with that. He did test here a few weeks ago, not with me because I was working abroad, so I had to draft in an absolutely fantastic substitute, Sen Fielding. And they had a really good day here, actually took a lot away from it. He put in some wicked times, so track knowledge, all good. When we go into free practice, you know, it's a bit of showing what people can do and all this kind of thing. He's been out the car for a few weeks, so you have to get your feet under the table again. But I'm pretty confident he's going to do that. I've noticed almost straight away that his shoulders are a little bit further down starting the weekend, which is no bad thing actually, because I think he's just got a couple more race weekends under his belt now and everything just seems a bit more familiar.
Yeah, all the wets are starting to come out on the basis that if it gets any worse, people will box for wet. But at the moment, it's just a light mist, so I'm tempted to just stay out at the moment. But if it gets any worse, yeah. Last lap was 107.7, which is not bad, but he's on a pretty shot set of tyres at this point. So we're going to box him for new, send him out on brand new and see what the true pace is. he got down to a 106 dead, which is good, which is his fastest time of the day, so I can't ask for much more than that. And actually it's literally about a tenth and a half between him and the next two cars ahead, so it's not cavernous for sure. And they're the cars he's going to be racing, Paul and Callum Leatham, so I'm happy we're in the mix there really. It'll be third row of the grid for the race start, and get your elbows out.
I know that there was a faster lap in there. I know it. And again, the whole shoulda, woulda, coulda thing it can be easy to get caught up in that. And on that last run, the last lap, that I knew was going to be the last lap, I was purple sectors the whole way around. And then annoyingly, as I approached the chicane, there was a car who was clearly on his cool down lap who was just in the way. And at that point, you have to avoid them. Yeah, well, I think 106 dead, so I think fifth. P5 in class, P6 overall, which is great. That's third row, it's what I wanted, so that's good.
Over the start finish line, the lights go out and we're away in racing for round 4 of the championship. Paul Simmerson moves over towards Callum Leatham. Callum Leatham puts 2 wheels on the grass to avoid any contact, but it's going to be Gilbert Yates that leads up towards Redgate Corner. Can he hang on to it around the outside? Pranav Van Gala, no he can't, so he's still there in second place. Mike Dewhurst is in third. I'm afraid Peter Hunter has had a small off at Redgate Corner. He has rejoined. He was trying to make progress, but he's now at the very tail end of the field.
Even more work to do then for Hunter after that difficulty in qualifying side by side there between Marcar and Leatham. Leatham on the recovery after dropping 2 or 3 spots, but for the second time in the first lap, he's on the grass. He's around a full 360 rotation. Thankfully, everybody avoids the number 95. He's got it going in the right direction.
He has, yeah, that was right across the nose of one of the cars, and he just managed to keep it under his spell. It's Paul Dixon, I think, that he spun straight across the nose of, and he's already managed to overtake him, and now Paul Dixon has got trying round the outside to make progress. Stephen Dobson was another driver who had a bit of a poor qualifying and is now looking to try and make some progress. So over the start-finish line have already come the leading train of cars. Up towards the end of the first lap goes Stephen Dobson with Paul Dixon right behind him, and then the yellow car of Hussein Sert. Hussein Sert has also got another car tucked right underneath him, which is going to be the fast-recovering Peter Hunter.
With Gilbert Yates up ahead, though, in the lead, and just behind him, the Copa Shell leader, Dewhurst, in third overall. But for now, we continue to watch Peter Hunter picking the bones, trying to get back through the field. Oh, and contact into Coppice.
Yeah, a little bit of contact as he goes into the side of Paul Dixon. Paul was trying to turn into the corner. Peter was already there when Paul turned in, but there was side-to-side contact between the pair of them. If there is any damage, it's hopefully just light damage between the pair of them. Gilbert Yates leads by 1.5 seconds after 2 laps of racing. He's starting to disappear up the road. Over the start-finish line goes Peter Hunter. No obvious signs of any damage to his car, apart from, yes, there is a small bit of damage, isn't there? A dive plane has gone on the front left-hand corner of his car, which has tucked itself underneath towards the Pirelli tyre. I don't think there's any tyre drag or rub, but that will affect the handling. There is an extra point also for the fastest lap, whether it be in Trofeo Pirelli or in Copa Shell. Each one of those will also gain an extra championship point. So Gilbert Yates, already now on lap number 3, is 2.2 seconds to the good. Paul Simmerson still sitting there in 4th place, the third of the Trofeo Pirelli cars that we have in the order. As for the progress of Peter Hunter, well, last time through he was up to 13th position, which means that he is still 1 place behind where he started at this stage.
Great to see all of this fighting going on in the midfield. It was less than 8/10 separating Dewhurst in 3rd to Rogers in 14th on the grid in qualifying, and the biggest gap between anybody was 0.119 of a second. Both cars off the circuit there, but Samarakov slows up massively after dipping 2 wheels onto the grass outside of Coppice. Leatham then gets through, but both drivers there going off the circuit. I think Leatham just kind of idly following Samarakov's wheel tracks a little bit there.
The other good fight is for 5th and 6th position. Hamandra Pillai in the burgundy-coloured car with its gold flashes to it is under big pressure here from John Marcar. They are fighting for 4th and 5th in Trofeo Pirelli at this stage, and there's not a great deal between the pair of them as they exit McLean's and head up towards Coppice, that difficult entry towards Coppice Corner where you commit to the apex before you even see it. It's only when you turn in and then see the apex you actually truly understand whether you've got it right or not.
Yeah, Yeah, two interesting backgrounds, of course, on these drivers. Amandra Pillai, who did his first proper season of racing with us in Ferrari Challenge UK last year, and then John Marcar, currently in his first season of competitive motorsport. But of course, he comes with years of experience of driving performance cars through his role as a motoring journalist, while side by side, further back, Leatham trying to go around the outside of Satchel and gets it done before they even get to the apex of Redgate.
Joseph Dean closing in the slipstream. He's not going to get there into the braking area, though.
No, not quite yet, but biding his time, making his way closer and closer to the rear of Satchel. Gets a good run out of the last turn. Let's see if he can make it work into Redgate.
Yeah, he's going to. He's got the inside line. Jonathan Satchel, I think, will let him go, albeit Joseph Dean brakes a little bit earlier because I think he knows that the gap will close, and his best bet would try and get an undercut coming out of the corner. Bit of a wiggle from Jonathan Satchel as he got on the power for the moment. Joseph Dean sits behind, but the last 3 laps he has been quicker. He's brought that gap down, and then there's contact between the pair of them as they go down through the Craner curves, the fastest part of the circuit. They both spin sideways across the track. Jonathan Satchel will be the quicker of the two to recover because his car was always largely pointing in the right direction. Joseph Dean's was facing in the wrong direction, and for poor old Jonathan Satchel, from second in Copa Shell, I'm afraid that's going to drop him right the way down through the order.
Of course, Peter Hunter, for all of his woes in qualifying, for his first lap offs, he's now second in Copa Shell, so he's had quite the resurgence.
Yeah, for Paul Simerson, what he needs to do is get past Hussein Sert. He sneaks up the inside of the number 55 car, heading in towards Redgate Corner, deals with the back marker Lapri of that car. John Marcar now at the top of Hollywood also needs to sneak his way through, which he has done, and he needs to crack on with it because Callum Leatham is beginning to close in on the pair of them. So down through the Craner curves they'll go. 4th, 5th and 6th all together. Paul Simerson with a 108 last time through, John Marcar with a 106.4, Callum Leatham with a 106.8. So the squabble is beginning to form for what would be 3rd, 4th and 5th in Trofeo Pirelli, 4th, 5th and 6th overall.
Yeah, an interesting scrap developing here then, potentially between Simerson, Marcar and Leatham. They all seem to be compacting in on each other, don't they? Marcar's last lap was his personal best of the race, and Simerson being, I think, slightly held up by the traffic more so than anything, but he was actually the slowest driver in the top 7 last time by. Leatham, you can see he's got damage on the on either side, hasn't he, on the right side of the car. I'm sure that's not quite handling to the nth degree.
Yeah, but he's still pushing hard, Callum Leatham, no doubt with words of wisdom in his ear from his professional driver coach, Johnny Kane, who's been around the block a few times and certainly knows how to extract the best out of young Callum Leatham, who's still learning his trade in reality. The second place car of Pranav Van Gala now has traffic to deal with as he heads around through Coppice Corner. That is Joseph Dean, who moves neatly out of the way of the number 29 car of Pranav. Pranav, who had a good run in the championship last year, finished 3rd in the Trofeo Pirelli standings in his debut season in Ferrari Challenge UK. Gilbert Yates, our race leader, still flashing his lights, still cars to deal with. That's Paul Rogers. He's gone through and past on the run in towards Redgate Corner. Here's now Gilbert Yates, nearly 4 seconds up the road, and he's on to his 20th lap of the race.
Yeah, the gap went down to 3.1 effectively the previous time by, but back out to almost 4 seconds on this occasion. Just the ebb of flow of traffic at play as we watch this 4th place battle. Once again, John Marcar flashing the headlights, but I imagine he's doing less looking through the windscreen than he is looking through the mirrors on the run down to Redgate there, with Leatham right behind him, and Simerson will be somewhat hoping that those two start to squabble among themselves so he can get a few more car lengths than he has at present. Very little room for error currently in this battle for what is 3rd in Trofeo Pirelli, but 4th overall.
Yeah, John Marcar's in that unenviable position, isn't he? He's in that dichotomy. Do I attack? Do I defend? Do I try and do a little bit of both? So they all flick their way up towards the left-hand Kinkert-Schwantz curve. The blue and red car, Paul Simonson. The black car is John Marcar. The almost burgundy car with the white and the yellow flashes to it and a little bit of damage on the rear being Callum Leatham. They head round through Coppice Corner. They are all on lap number 20 as things currently stand. There was very little to choose between them last time through, but Paul Simerson is the most experienced of these three, isn't he? John Marcar and Callum Leatham in their first season of racing in the Ferrari Challenge UK, whereas Paul Simerson has been around for a year or two.
Yeah, exactly right. He's wanting to use that experience advantage, and obviously all of them in their first season of the 296 Challenge car by default. But no matter what you've been driving, if you've got a couple of years in a quick GT car, and Simerson was of course in the 488 Challenge Evo with us in Ferrari Challenge UK previously, that is a huge advantage over the guys behind. Simerson, of course, the newest of the three to Trofeo Pirelli with that voluntary step up from the Copa Shell class. But he really is making it work well.
Yeah, he is. He's 2 times a runner-up in the Copa Shell category, 2021, 2023. He's twice finished third in Copa Shell as well. That was in 2020 and 2022. So he's been a regular in the championship for a good number of years. So he's just turning his way out of Coppice Corner. John Marcar might be a tiny bit closer to him this time through, but to the naked eye, the gap hasn't come down a huge amount. Relative gap between them last time through was 0.6 of a second as they came over the start-finish line. Up towards Redgate Corner goes our Copa Shell leader. We've not really mentioned the number 78 car of Mike Dewhurst much, and that's largely because he's just gone about the task beautifully well. John Marcar as close as he's been to Paul Simerson as they head up towards Redgate Corner, but John Marcar needs to be careful that Callum Leatham doesn't wiggle his way through. Marcar gets a little bit squirrely on the exit. Callum Leatham tries to get the undercut onto the top of Hollywood, but John Marcar literally only just gets the door closed in time. So that little trio still busy squabbling away as they go down through the old hairpin. John Marcar misses the apex at the old hairpin. Callum Leatham absolutely bounces over it, so closes back in onto the coattails of the largely black car in the hands of the motorsport journalist, that being the number 16 car. So they are still together for 4th, for 5th and for 6th. They've got 3.5 minutes plus the extra lap to try and sort this one out.
I must imagine it's a bit of a psychological quandary for John Marcar in particular. I don't think he'll mind me saying this because he's declared it himself publicly on broadcast previously. That is not his car. It does not belong to him. Of course, he's well used to chucking around cars that don't belong to him, being a motoring journalist who's done a lot of track driving. But when you have those wheel-to-wheel moments, almost 3 wide approaching Hollywood, I'm sure it runs through his mind, well, this isn't mine.
Callum Leatham looking up the inside of John Marcar as they're both trying to squeeze their way past Jonathan Satchell. 2 wheels on the grass for Callum Leatham heading in towards Redgate Corner. Bounces over the curbs and is going to go through and ahead of John Marcar as he laps Jonathan Satchell. So great opportunistic driving from Callum Leatham. The gap was just wide enough to squeeze a 296 through, and that's exactly what he did. Just having a quick look through. If you look at the championship standings in Trofeo Pirelli, it is as per the top 6 at the moment in the race in Trofeo Pirelli. So Gilbert Yates from Pranav Van Gala from Paul Simerson as Callum Leatham now sneaks up the inside of Paul Simerson on the run in towards the Robert chicane. Compromised his exit speed a little bit, but he's got the job done. It didn't take him long. He's gone through. Paul Simerson is trying to re-attack on the run in towards Redgate Corner, jinking one way, jinking the other. Paul Simerson dives for the inside line. Can he get the car anchored up? Yes, he can. Callum Leatham sweeps across the nose of the car. There's contact between the pair of them. Callum Leatham heads in towards the gravel trap, and I think Callum was just trying to squeeze across the nose of Paul Simerson there up towards Redgate Corner, but Paul was pretty much already there.
No, exactly right. They met in the middle. Now Simerson's car has a little bit of damage for its troubles after that collision. But John Marcar, of course, the big profiteer of all that, he's moved up to 4th place. And yeah, I think Leatham was just trying to squeeze. And unfortunately, Simerson's car was not going to magically drop back.
No, and John Marcar has not as yet this year had a podium in Trofeo Pirelli. He's had a couple of 4ths, he's had a 5th, he's had a 6th. Well, at the moment, yes, he is now up into 4th overall, but that is 3rd in Trofeo Pirelli at this stage. But the job isn't done as yet. The clock may well have ticked to 0, but John Marcar comes in towards the Robert chicane, looks in his mirrors, and he's got that blue and red car of Paul Simerson sitting right behind him. So 2 cars fighting over the remaining podium spot in Trofeo Pirelli. Somebody's going to miss out of the 2 of them.
Yeah, Marcar was really squirrely there out of Coppice as we rejoined the live pictures. So feeling a little bit of the pressure, maybe just being told, you're up to P3 in class, my friend, and that can give you the wigglies if you're not careful. Marcar, though, holding on to Simerson for the time being. As you say, someone's going to win it, someone's going to have to lose as well. Let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah, Gilbert Yates is now nearly 10 seconds up the road from Pranav Van Gala. There's another good fight going on between Hemandra Pillai and the car that sits behind, which is Darren Howell. So that will be for 9th and 10th position. But the race leader is on his final lap of the race now. Gilbert Yates is looking to try and make it what for him would be his 5th win on the trot.
5th win on the trot, and it will be his 11th career win if things pan out as we're somewhat expecting them to, of course. I think that's his number. It was certainly the one on the car last year, wearing the number 1 this season, of course, defending the championship, and with each victory, Mark, his impeachability seems to lessen.
So he heads up towards Coppice Corner. He would end up on 118 championship points, plus the extra point for fastest lap. That would be 119 championship points he will end up on, if I've got the maths right. And with Pranav van Gala finishing 2nd, he would be on 92. So it really gives him a good advantage heading into tomorrow's 2nd race of the weekend. Out of the Robert chicane, up towards the checkered flag, Gilbert Yates wins round 4, race 7 of the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK. 5 on the bounce now for him, and that is a haul of maximum championship points so far today, with the extra point for fastest lap and the extra point for pole position. Pranav van Gala finishes in 2nd position, 3rd overall, and the win in Copa-Shell is going to go the way of Mike Dewhurst, the number 78 car, just heading over the start-finish line now. And who's going to complete the podium? Paul Simerson has got the job done. He has unpicked John Marcar somewhere on that final lap, and Paul Simerson takes the place. And by the look of things, that was down at the old hairpin, where on the very final lap we had another spin for Callum Leatham, I'm afraid.
It was very nearly my first ever podium, and for a couple of laps it was my first ever podium.
So what happened? The battle was intense.
I had a superb battle. Let's keep going because I want to be down at the podium. The battle was good, and Paul's going rightfully now to collect his 3rd place trophy, which, for, as I say, a couple of laps was mine. But the pressure just got to me. I made a mistake, lost the back end went out, and Paul, rightfully so, found his way through. But my God, I mean...
How did it feel to be so close?
Do you know what? I was beating myself up initially, it really was. But now, I can't help but admire that. That was a really good effort. That was a really good drive.
So my name is Stephen Feasey. I'm the number 1 mechanic running John Marcar's car 16 this year. As a number 1 mechanic, you're in charge of making sure sort of the car is ready for when John is ready to go out. So making sure the tyres are there, ready, you've got the right tyres on the car, you've got the brakes, checking the brakes, checking the car is ready, checking suspension, making sure it's all set up correct and ready to go. So we're checking the suspension for any sort of free play, any movement. If there is any movement, then we'll sort of change suspension parts if needed. And tyres, we're checking for sort of tyre wear, tyre life, whether we're having new tyres or old tyres, what sort of set we're going out on, depending on whether it's qualifying or practice sessions. And brakes, same again, just checking for wear. If it needs replacing, we'll replace them. So with the 296, it being a new car this year, I think we're all still learning. So we're all still looking at it, learning the way they work and stuff like that. But it's in general, sort of, as a mechanic, you train, I suppose, in that way to sort of look at things and take things apart and put things back. It is his first season. He is a bit nervous in the car, but he's definitely getting there. You can see that by sort of the results and the way he is moving up in the order. I'd like to see us get on that podium. I believe John's got it in him to get on that podium. Yeah, I do believe by the end of the season, we may have at least 1 bottle of champagne and a nice trophy.
Good morning, yeah, Donington Park, day 2. Yesterday, what a day, what a day. I feel like each round that I'm partaking in this challenge series is proving something more to me. It's giving me more of a challenge and more of an exciting race. And the one thing it's proving not to be is boring. And I hope that's for both me, well, clearly is for me, but also for the spectators as well, because yeah, we're having some good battles, and yesterday was a prime example of that. Each round there tends to be a new battle to have, and yeah, I had pressure from the front, pressure from behind. There were incidents that I avoided, there was gravel going everywhere, or bollards being blown off in front of me and bouncing off the windscreen. It was a day of eventualities, and the race as a result flew by. It felt like it was a 10-15 minute race, but I think that was just because there was something going on all the time. But yes, I was in 3rd place for a couple of laps, and on the last lap I just really felt the pressure from Paul Simerson behind me. I entered Craners just a bit too hot, back end stepped out, and Paul, very rightfully so, found his way through. And it's a weird thing, because in a way, would I have loved to have been standing here with one of those lovely hats and a third place trophy? Yes. But if it had happened in the result that got me into third place, which was essentially Callum pushing Paul off the track, it almost would have felt like I wouldn't have earned it as much. The game plan for day 2 for me is going to be to think a little bit more. What got away from me yesterday in the heat of the moment was I was overdriving the car. I had a couple of really big moments that were entirely avoidable, and it was just a result of me pushing too hard in the car, feeling the pressure. And Miles is brilliant because Miles is in my ears and he can tell when I'm overdriving the car. He's watching on a live feed in the car. So he knows when I'm overdriving and he'll tell me to calm down, but in that last lap, you could have put anybody in the ears to talk to me. I was just in like final lap race mode and I just pushed too hard. So for me, today's lesson from that is think more, pace myself more. I know that I can drive this car well. I know that I've got fantastic car control, and that was proven again yesterday. I need to just keep reminding myself that I've got all these attributes to me. I just need to put them into practice. If I can get another 4th top 5 finish, that'd be wonderful.
First and foremost, can I ask you to please introduce yourself to the camera?
Yeah, so my name's Josh Rolich. I'm also a coach.
Okay, that's enough of that. So.
Right, okay. Right, so that's enough of that. So I'm not very important, but the main thing is Miles has done a great job with John. It was great to see him finish 4th yesterday. I'm looking forward to the race today. Hopefully my driver Fedor, he finished 7th yesterday, so we're looking for a podium today, so let's see what we got.
Oh, that sounds like fighting talk, because we're going for one of them as well.
Right, I'll see you on track then.
Oh, baby. Love your work. I would like to take a quote directly from our engineer, Davide, and say we were moments away from being in the clouds. And we were, because I watched this race unfold in front of me and John was just driving nice and consistently. I was talking to him ready on the radio almost every lap because I could almost see what was going to come as it was coming. And there was a part where he let a couple of cars through, not good, but same thing, wait for them to make some mistakes, put a bit of pressure on, get back to where you need to be. And then before I knew it, the car that came past him, Callum, put this absolutely ridiculous move and fired it up the inside. Fair enough, pretty good move. I said, look, you've got to stay with these two because there's every chance that they're going to come together and slow each other down. And within half a lap's exactly what happened. So then he's third, and you can probably see, like, cut to a shot of my face now where I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. And it was a potential of a first ever podium for John, which it was just such a huge moment. And then I needed him to get one more lap, just one more lap chalk down to get to the end. And he just made one tiny mistake that was so costly. And Paul Simpson was right behind him. And that's all he needed. He needed one small invitation to come through, half a lap from the end. Paul goes back into third and we finished in 4th. And I could hear the disappointment through John's voice on the radio, and I think it's just because we were moments away from glory really, and that would have been by far the best result that we've ever had. But never mind that, what I have to say is that's the best race performance I've seen him deliver for the entire season. So if I could see just a shred of that again today, we'd all be very, very happy.
Well, it was a change of tactic because yesterday when you start qualifying on Saturday, you have to start with your race 1 set of tyres. So any laps that you do in the qualifying effectively takes life out of your tyre for the race, which is what we saw towards the end of the race yesterday. Change of tactic today. We're allowed to go out on old, so we sent him out on old and then limit the laps that he does on new. So I just needed him to go out on the new and deliver a decent time. That's exactly what he did. So it's his fastest time he's done all weekend by another 10th, which is great. But more importantly, it's a good grid position. It's third row, which is absolutely fine. And the cars around him, I'm pretty sure we can navigate with a bit more, elbows out robustness.
If I can stick around P4, I might drop down to a P5. If I can be in that first 3 rows again, I'll be really happy.
How'd the car feel?
Car felt great. Yeah, the ambient temperature today is a lot cooler than it was in the race yesterday, which means that you're able to take advantage of the grip a little bit more. Yeah, another brilliant session with Miles this morning in the data room, just going through little bits of tidying up T1 and the polar opposite side down at McLean's, both of which we knew there was time to be found, and yeah, we proved it this morning. So new PB here, which is great. Fingers crossed nobody goes out and sets an absolute stonker and gets through, but hey, look, at least if we get ourselves into the same position as we were in yesterday in the race by over 3/4 of the way through, and the tyres on other people's cars are letting them down, I'm feeling a bit more confident that I'll be able to keep everything in check. So yeah, there might be some end of the run battles.
Red lights on the gantry. For the 8th time this year, we're about to go racing in the Ferrari Challenge UK. Lights go off on the gantry now, and we're away and racing. And it is Gilbert Yates that seems to have the advantage with that all-important inside line as they head up towards Redgate Corner. Can Pranav Vangala brave it out around the outside? He's trying to. He needs to be careful he doesn't run wide, because that might just leave the door open for Mike Dewhurst to squeeze his way through. There's a spin further down through the order and into the gravel trap, but scrabbling his way out goes Darren Howell. So as they all start to descend down through the Craner Curves for the first time, it's Gilbert Yates from Pranav Vangala from Fedor Samarakov, who is up to 3rd overall, and Mike Dewhurst is the early Copa Shell leader, but he has lost a place. He's dropped down to 4th.
It's Hamandra Pillai that spun out there on the exit of Redgate to the inside of the corner. Looks like his car is rolling. I don't think there was any contact with anybody, but to your point there, Samarakov with a positive start. He's gotten ahead of Mike Dewhurst. Also a positive start for Peter Hunter. He's there in 6th in the overall order, 2nd in Copa Shell, and Mike Dewhurst isn't too far ahead.
Yeah, there is contact, well, there is damage for the car of Hamandra Pillai. It's the front right-hand corner that has suffered some damage, so quite how that has come about, I'm not entirely sure. We'll pick up on that as cars come over the start-finish line, but it looks like the safety car is being scrambled. So with that car stricken of Hamandra Pillai on the top of Hollywood and the inside of Redgate Corner, safety car is immediately called into effect.
Keep an eye on the midfield there. We see Hamandra Pillai. We also see Pranav Vangala, yes, being run a little bit wide there. Pillai, he spun. And then, unfortunately, Paul Simerson ended up in the firing line there. Let's hope Paul's damage isn't too bad. He at least continued rolling.
Yeah, so all we were doing was, on the original shots, just seeing Hamandra Pillai spin to the inside.
Yeah, Simerson dropped quite a way off the back of the field on that first lap as well. We can just see him heading back down the Craners at the moment. So hopefully that car is okay. We'll keep an eye on him. Of course, we saw Darren Howell straying off as well. Unfortunate that he wasn't able to capitalise on the first lap on what was a very positive qualifying, but there's a long way to go here.
So safety car starting to accelerate away from the pack. Gilbert Yates doing a tiny bit of weaving just to try and build a bit of surface temperature into the tyres. He'll be on and off the brakes as well to try and maintain some brake temperature. And he'll head part the way through the Robert chicane and puts his foot down to try and get a good restart. But Pranav Vangala is trying to go with him. Fedor Samarakov still there in 3rd place. There's no overtaking until you reach the control line, the start-finish line in reality. And as they head up towards Redgate Corner, the order remains the same, with Dewhurst still there in 4th place, leading Copa Shell at this stage. But it's been a good restart from the front two, hasn't it? Gilbert Yates and Pranav Vangala stretching their legs, pulling away from the all-black car of Fedor Samarakov, who is in 3rd place, which for him would match his best finishing position of the year so far. He finished on the podium overall at Brands, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Let's see if he can achieve the same heady heights this time. I think a slightly disappointing race here yesterday, but right back up into the top 3 placings right now with Mike Dewhurst, the Copa Shell leader, behind, of course, someone who is very determined to get their first podium in the Trofeo Pirelli class, is the man in 5th overall at the moment, John Marcar. He only did about 10 minutes on his current set of Pirellis that are on the car now in qualifying, with a view to having some fresh tyres towards the end of the race, because he felt that the tyres were getting towards the end of their competitive lifespan by the end of yesterday's race.
Yeah, he just sort of dropped off a little bit and was struggling, wasn't he, with the tyres towards the end of it. So he sits there 5th overall, but as you say, is 4th of the Trofeo Pirelli cars at this stage. Everybody else filing their way over the start-finish line. As on to lap number 7, including those behind the safety car, goes our race leader. Gilbert Yates, that time through, picked up the fastest lap of the race, 1:05.324. Still a long way to go, but for the moment, the extra championship point for fastest lap is in his pocket.
Yeah, so that's a good little battle in the Copa Shell standings. I note that Peter Hunter has fallen off the back of John Marcar a little bit. So Hunter, who runs second in Copa-Shell, losing out to Marcar, which also means that Mike Dewhurst is driving up the road. Of course, in order to extend the championship considerations in Copa-Shell to Silverstone, Hunter only needs to finish. But of course, in Peter Hunter's mind, he's thinking, well, never mind that. I want to gain points over Mike to try and get this title at Silverstone. But right now, with Mike Dewhurst's form here at Donington National, it's looking a little bit of a task for Peter Hunter.
There's a good fight for the final podium spot in Copa-Shell, just heading down towards Redgate Corner. The red car with the white stripe down the centre of it is Steve Dobson. He's got the purple and Dayglow pink machine of Paul Rogers right behind him. Jonathan Satchel coming under pressure towards Redgate Corner, as trying to squeeze his way through is the Dick Lovett Swindon car in the hands of Paul Dixon. That didn't work, and now that's dropped him into the clutches of Darren Howe. So that is 5th, 6th and 7th in Copa-Shell, busy squabbling away, with Paul Simonson not that far behind them, and then Hussein Sert, who will be the 8th in Copa-Shell. So that's almost a 5-car train, isn't it, picking its way past Starkey's Bridge and up towards Schwantz Curve.
Yeah, Satchel, of course, gaining those places in the first lap, as you mentioned, picked his way through quite nicely. But now it looks like he's under threat from not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 of his rivals in this battle. Of course, Satchel, last time there was that contact moment with the number 12 of Dean, wasn't there, in yesterday's race that we saw on the way down the Craner curves, which have no doubt was a terrifying moment from the driver's seat. Meanwhile, look at Hussein Sert. He's got himself back past Paul Simonson. So firing back the number 55 driver. Oh, but a little bit loose. A lot of bit loose there out of the final chicane.
Wow, there was lots of arm twirling there to try and get that Ferrari back within his grasp, and that slowed his speed. Paul Dixon up the inside of Jonathan Satchel, gives him room on the exit of Redgate Corner, and Paul Dixon goes through, takes the place away from Johnny Satchel, who now needs to close the door on Darren Howell from working his way past. So it's just the 1 place lost for Jonathan Satchel, and not unsurprisingly, with that big moment for Hussein Sert coming out of the Robert chicane, it did allow Paul Simonson to go back through and ahead once more. So this quintet of cars, they're all shuffling the order at this stage with 14 minutes plus the extra lap to go. They are on lap number 11 at the moment. The leader goes on to lap number 12. So Mike Dewhurst just heading through Redgate Corner now as our Copa-Shell leader, the number 78 car. Now he's got a very small amount of damage heading to the front, to the rear right-hand side of his car. It just looked as though something was sticking out a bit more on that side. Yes, yeah. There is. Yeah, there's something, isn't it? So maybe yellow bit of bodywork that we saw, it might not be in Hussein Sert. Maybe it was Mike Dewhurst's car.
Maybe so.
Yeah,
a little bit of damage certainly on that number 78 car. Looking at the opposite side, it would be blue bodywork, well, blue wrap anyway, but of course the actual colour of the bodywork is another question. But nonetheless, the pace of Mike Dewhurst certainly isn't being hindered by that little flesh wound to the car. Once again, keeping pace with those who have podium potential in Trofeo Pirelli, keeping Samarakov in a fairly close radius in 3rd and 4th overall, and then of course he's still just ahead of John Marcar in 5th place overall. This has been a really solid weekend for Mike Dewhurst. We were having a joking conversation earlier on talking about how long it is until the inevitable promotion. Of course, if he wins the Copa-Shell Championship at the conclusion of this season and he comes back to us for 2026, he will come back as a Trofeo Pirelli driver.
Yeah, he only just missed out on the Copa-Shell Championship last year. It was literally the final race, the final corner that almost decided whether he or Robert Rees were going to be the champion, and as it was Robert Rees that became the champion, but Robert is focusing on business commitments and I think the potential of moving abroad, so he's not back to defend his title. That fight that we're talking about, Paul Dixon and Darren Howell still together. Paul Dixon was slightly slower coming off Redgate Corner that time through, as again there was a very small wiggle from his car as he tried to get on the power as soon as possible, but he's doing a very good job of just keeping it at arm's length and palming away the aspirations of the number 5 car of Darren Howell from JCT 600. So the two of them again up towards the left-hand flick at Schwantz Curve, in towards McLean's Corner. And it's still just at the moment Paul Dixon that hangs on to that 10th position as they head up towards Coppice.
Absolutely right. Remember I said that I didn't think Darren Howell was going to make any further progress. Well, that was when he was 8 seconds behind Paul Rogers. He's now 4.7 back. He's gaining at a rate of knots. Again, with 4 minutes and 20 seconds plus 1 lap of this race to go, it would be an ask. But Darren Howell has the bit between his teeth at the moment and would like a couple of extra championship points if possible.
Yeah, one person who's on for good championship points is the man who runs third in Copa-Shell at the moment, number 25, Steve Dobson. He's just working his way out of McLean's corner. This is the red car with the white stripe right the way down the centre of it. And for Steve Dobson, he yesterday in the race finished down in 4th in Copa-Shell. Now, we saw Darren Howell claim his first Copa-Shell podium of the season yesterday. If Steve Dobson can hang on to the position that he is in, he is on for his first Copa-Shell podium of the year as he's about to flick his way over the start-finish line now in the number 25 car. Through he goes, 8th place overall, 3rd in Copa-Shell. If he can hang on to that for 3.5 minutes plus the extra lap, he's going to be a first-time podium visitor.
Great stuff for Dobson. Here's Mike Dewhurst on the back of Samarakov. The battle for 3rd overall has closed up, and Mike Dewhurst is now within attacking range. John Marcar will be watching on with interest as well, of course, because he isn't that far removed from a potential Trofeo Pirelli class podium if he can get past Samarakov. If Dewhurst and Samarakov begin to scrap here, it could become a 3-car battle.
Yeah, they're just heading out of Coppice corner now and in towards the braking area for the Robert chicane. So the black car of Samarakov, the yellow, red and blue car of Mike Dewhurst. The next of the black cars will be John Marcar, and they come out of the Robert chicane and over the start-finish line now. That is now 21 laps completed, and those 3 cars are separated by a little more than 1.2 seconds. There's a flash of the lights from John Marcar. It might be his first season of racing, but he's already picked up on some of the little tricks to try and put the driver off that lies ahead.
Yes, he admitted he was using that button a few times during qualifying on laps that were looking very good, and then unfortunately went by the wayside in the final chicane. He's definitely figured out what that button on the very, very complicated Ferrari 296 Challenge steering wheel does, and he is now closer to Dewhurst than Dewhurst is to Samarakov.
So just through McLean's corner and then up towards Coppice corner, which is the highest point of the Donington Park National Circuit. You could see Mike Dewhurst's car. It was almost sliding its way in towards Coppice corner with a very small amount of turning oversteer, I think. Now the tail end of the car just over-rotating very, very slightly. Our front 2 are now separated by 6.4 seconds, the gap from Gilbert Yates back to Pranav Vangala. We've not seen a great deal of Gilbert Yates. That's largely because Gilbert Yates has done what Gilbert Yates has been doing now for pretty much 2 seasons, just getting on with the job in hand. Yeah, they'll just be in the middle sector of the lap at the moment, so they'll be exiting Coppice corner and working their way down towards the Robert chicane. Peter Hunter just about head over the start-finish line. He's in 6th place. Joseph Dean in 7th. Steve Dobson in 8th place. And then it'll be Paul Rogers, who is now under enormous pressure from Darren Howell, who is fully caught and is trying to wiggle his way through and past as they head up towards Redgate corner. Is he going to be able to make it stick? I don't think he is. That other battle that we're talking about is just heading round through McLean's corner now, and Mike Dewhurst, I think for me, has done the sensible thing. He's let John Marcar go through. He's lost a place overall, but he still leads Copa-Shell.
Yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or not, because he was way offline immediately post Old Hairpin, so I don't know whether he made a slight slip-up or whether he decided to let Marcar through. Let's see if John can do anything with that. Our race leader then has begun the final lap of the race. Gilbert Yates at the front of the field just through the first sector split, and we'll keep an eye as well, of course, on those other battles around the circuit.
Yeah, so Gilbert Yates is just coming up to that Paul Rogers and Darren Howell battle, which is just approaching Coppice corner. Now, the good thing for Gilbert Yates is with 6.9 seconds in hand, he doesn't necessarily need to place a lap on these 2 cars, and I'm not sure he's going to get there anyway, because they're just sufficiently far enough up the road and ahead of the race leader, who's going to back things off coming in towards the Robert chicane for the final time. Through the right, through the left, up towards the start-finish line, and Gilbert Yates is going to claim another victory. Round 4, race 8 of the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK goes the way of Gilbert Yates, but with Pranav Vangala about to come through and finish in 2nd place, that keeps the championship alive still in Trofeo Pirelli. Who's going to finish in 3rd place? Fedor Samarakov was still in 3rd place when we last picked up on it, but John Marcar was still busy flashing his lights, trying to grab his first podium in Trofeo Pirelli, with John Marcar finishing in 4th place, and Mike Dewhurst in 5th claims the win in Copa Shell, and that means that the Copa Shell Championship is going to stay alive as well, because Peter Hunter should be the next car through to take the checkered flag.
That was by far the most consistent, the fastest, safest, most controlled, most comfortable, most relaxed race I've had so far in the season, and all throughout I was aware of that. Really good start. I had a good chat with Mike Dewhurst, who of course is racing in Copper Shell, so the class below, but he qualified ahead of me. Mike very kindly said, look, tuck in behind me, let's get through the first few corners, which is very, very kind of him, because of course we had the inside line there and neither of us wanted to lose out to anyone else, so suddenly 2 cars together becomes one big block. So yeah, we did that. Fedor, who qualified ahead of me and ultimately ended up finishing 3rd, he just got a fantastic line round the front, so rightfully so, off he went up into 3rd place, and very quickly the order sorted itself out. We had Pranav and Gilbert way up ahead, and then Fedor, Mike, who's in Copper Shell, and myself. So of course what I want to get past is Fedor, because he's the person in my championship. But the 3 of us just kind of stuck together like a train the whole way around. Fedor and Gilbert disappeared. And one thing that Mike did do, which was extremely gracious, as I was catching up to Mike and Fedor, Mike let me through. And of course, you know, he doesn't have to do that, but we are in different classes. But yeah, Mike pulled to one side to let me through, to have a little last 2-3 laps with battle with Fedor. But it wasn't to be. Fedor drove absolutely brilliantly. Weekend over, we're done. And I think the theme of the weekend for me personally has been quite relaxed. It's been the most relaxed I've felt. I've allowed myself to actually really enjoy this time. I think I went into this weekend feeling perhaps a bit more prepared than before. Spent an awful lot of time on the simulator and had a fantastic test day here a few weeks back with a stand-in coach, admittedly. Miles was off tarting on the other side of the world somewhere. But yeah, all of that has been a huge help to me and has enabled me to come here, remembering also that this is a familiar place for me. I've done a lot of track day laps here, and I quite like Donington. It's a fun circuit. So yeah, went into the weekend feeling relaxed, feeling good about it, and then yeah, we kind of cracked on it with FP1, FP2. Pace looked good. There were a few bits we could tidy up, and we did.
Yeah, I spoke about this at the start of the weekend. Really, when you come to somewhere that's a bit more familiar, that's half the battle straight away. You're not having to learn a brand new circuit, so that was great. Having had a successful test, as you said, but not forgetting the fact that we're now 4 rounds in with twice as many race starts and restarts and qualifying and just the general format of the weekend. Once you've got a few more of those under your belt, you're just more familiar with your surroundings. You know what's coming next, and you can start to prepare yourself more for what's coming next. And I dare I say, when we arrived on Saturday morning, we both said the same thing. We were like, just feels a bit more chilled, and that translates into the driving always. The way that first race panned out on Saturday was just mad. There was so much going on. At the front, at the middle, at the back, it was just, you didn't know where to look. And you found yourself in a pretty tasty battle at a number of points. And sometimes those things do play into your hands. You know that a couple of guys, when they get together at the front, they're going to start slowing each other down. So when you're just driving cleanly, you can just capitalise on an opportunity, and it's exactly what happened. We almost read the playbook perfectly, didn't we? And being able to get up to what was a P3 for a lead for a P3 for a couple of laps was absolutely spot on. But the tyres were just shot towards the end, and lesson learned there. It won't. That's something that you'll beat yourself up more about than any of us will care to do so. So it's just a lesson learned that the managing the weekend from the very start, whether it's your quali, looking after your tyres, managing your tyres throughout the race, changing some settings if you need to, changing your approach towards the end of the race. These are all things that we really kind of haven't had to do before, right? Because we weren't quite up there. Now we're up there. We're actually fighting for a genuine and well-earned podium place.
I know that I battled really hard for the position I finished in, much like today. It was a good, solid push on both events, where a lot was learned, and I took a lot of what came out of the race result of yesterday's race into today's race for Sunday, and would like to think that it was the best race I've had by far this year. So yeah, today's race, the whole way through, I was a lot more conservative on not pushing the tyres too hard, and whilst it would have been lovely to get a better start and get a leap on Fedor, who quite rightly qualified ahead of me, so therefore went ahead of me at the beginning, it was a nice, clean, safe, consistent. There must have been 10 quite clean, consistent laps there, where all the braking points were spot on, all the turning points were spot on, all the exits were spot on, and I knew that in the moment. So yeah, the main lesson was just to calm things down. But we always find that, we have these 2 race weekends. Saturday ends up being a bit of a rehearsal, and then Sunday everything sort of comes together. So yes, the lessons were just calm it down, think more about what the tyres are doing, think more about the importance of track position, braking points, exit points, and it all came together it was a really, really good, clean race.
This was one of those scenarios on Sunday where, we really weren't fighting it wasn't possible for us to fight for a true third at the start of the season. That just wasn't realistic. The difference is you are now, you're actually on the pace that would give you a convincing third place at the moment. And what ended up happening is you've got Fedor, who's matured massively over a really short space of time and drove, in our eyes, really, really well this weekend. He got a great start, but so did you and so did Mike. So it was just one of those situations where actually the 3 cars in the battle, including you, just drove exceptionally well. It was just one of those races where it was quite undramatic. Not really many things happened. All we could do really at that point for you is just be there ready to pounce if something was there we could capitalise on. It just never happened. Fedor drove really, really faultlessly. Mike always does drive super clean. And he did open the door for us to the end, but it was just probably 2 or 3 laps too late. Might have had a chance at Fedor, but then obviously you've still got to overtake him, and the rest, there's so many ifs, buts and whys, but I just think it was the most mature race I've seen you deliver. I also think it was one of the most robust starts I've seen you deliver. Even I said to Davide at the start, when you were coming up to the grid, the tyre pressures were higher than they've ever been before. We had to bleed them down. We've never had to do that before because you actually worked the tyres properly. So these are all things these are tiny little things that just weren't happening at the start of the season because you can't remember to do all those things just too much. Now it's all playing in to the point where you can capitalise on the pace that we know you have, and it gets better. Even the race we just had then, you actually just posted your fastest time. So these are all things that we come away and have incremental improvements each time. And yeah, I kick you now and again for a couple of things, but they're only things that are going to elevate you as a driver. And so many people came up and said at the end, great drive, and it was well deserved.
This is still so alien to me. And I wanted to start this season not being slow, not being useless, and had already started with a bit of pressure on my shoulders in terms of the fact that I was put in the fast class, in the Trofeo Pirelli class. I'm going to come and have a weekend like I've had this weekend, where we've ended 2 races with the car absolutely in one piece, no damage at all, in 2 very good positions, 2 4th place finishes, and it allows me to now look ahead to Silverstone and go, do you know what? We might have a go at this. We might actually have a good crack, and that's a really lovely feeling to have. I always want to be good at everything I do, and sometimes you just got to build your way up. But I mean, you look at who we're racing against, and you've got the guys in 1st and 2nd place, Pranav and Gilbert. They are so much faster than everybody else, 20 seconds faster than everybody else. Massive. So we almost write them off in terms of, they're going to get that 1st and 2nd place. But realistically, the rest of the talent pool, in terms of how we're driving, I'm one of the fast guys, and I have to keep reminding myself of that. I am one of the fast guys in this group, aside from the 2 guys with loads of experience. So I'm going to try and keep that in my head for Silverstone and ahead of Silverstone, and go into it with that knowledge, that I have the ability to push on. I have the ability to fight my way as I have been today, fight for podiums, because there's every possibility that it might just happen.